Hey, Ingrid.
Hi.
Hey, let's get started.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so hello everyone, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Folio webinar. I hope you all had a good Memorial Day weekend. And for those of you who are joining us from outside of the US, I hope you've been having a good week so far. I'm your host, Ingrid Velasquez Woodley. I'm also the head of content and marketing for Folio. And with me today is Fabian Yu, who is the head of our design and development team. Hello, Fabian.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good, thank you. So today we would like to introduce you to the features that we've released in the past couple months. And more importantly, we want to show you how you can use these new functionalities so that you can take advantage of faster specification and procurement as the economy reopens. So today we are going to talk about a faster way to assign quantities to your items, how to turn your mood boards into spec sheets without duplicating work, linking components to create custom furniture, how to analyze your costs according to supplier and PO status, secure and flexible sharing with external collaborators, and a lot more.
Yep, and after that, we're going to talk about some of the new features in our pipeline, and then we're going to open up for a Q&A.
Yep. All right. So yeah, we do have a lot of things to talk about today. So Flipen, can you please start with how Folio has made it easier to input data for users who have a lot of columns?
So let's use your screen.
Yep.
I want to make sure that I have remote control. Okay. So first of all, after we roll out the dashboard with different templates options, some of our users really took advantage of that and create different phase templates to manage their processes and workflow. However, some of them face a problem that they have lots of columns and is not particularly user-friendly for them to have to scroll left and right. So we did two improvements. One is to roll out this grid view so that you can see all the relevant columns of a specific product categories in one single screen. You can also leverage this open asset page. So with the table view, you can see many product information at once. If you want to zoom in into one particular product information, just click on this expand button and open that product information as a single page and start doing input right here. Another, actually, I cannot switch screen. Give me a second. Another improvement we have rolled out is to make assigning quantity to a certain area easier. So especially for the folks who are working on larger projects like commercial projects, you might have lots of rooms. Instead of having to, eyeball and trying to find a room number you're looking for, now we actually redid this area column so that if you want to assign, for example, this particular item to your shower area, you can just type in certain keywords and it will have auto suggest for you to select and that area and assign the quantity. Okay, so this will make assigning quantity to different areas much faster. So Ingrid, now we are talking about like improvements and make things easier. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the mood board and how it can improve the efficiencies.
Yep, absolutely. So essentially, and I think you'll find this really cool. What we've done is that we made the mood board a lot more functional by integrating it a lot more closely with the dashboard, and you'll see what I mean here in a second. So in the past, the mood board function was a great tool for quickly putting together a concept board by dragging and dropping images. But now, in addition to that, you can automatically add annotations, or notes to the bottom of your images, and you can select which data is going to be pulled right here. And you can actually select as many bits of data as you want. And then the other thing is that, because a lot of you have been telling us about how your process is very visual in the beginning. And so the first thing you do is put together a mood board and then create the spec sheet. But then, you know, it would be nice to not have to double that effort, in that you're going to have to create a separate spec sheet for that. Well, now you don't have to, because everything you add to your mood board, you can now push to your dashboard using this button. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just save this. So once you click there, it's going to ask you to choose where these items are going to go. Just click confirm. And it'll take you straight back to your dashboard. And then the other thing, lastly, about the mood board is that something that is going to be pretty useful for when you're creating custom pieces is this. So, let's say I'm putting together that lounge chair, for example. Okay, so this. So if you're putting together custom pieces, let's say this chair, and you want to use this particular piece of fabric for it, so now you have this concept board that you can share with your client or your custom manufacturer. And what you can do is, before you send the spec sheet over to them, you can actually add that concept board to your spec sheet just by going to the images, clicking there, and then pulling it from your dashboard. So now you're able to enhance the amount of you know, detail and data that you're putting together for either your client or your manufacturer. But speaking of custom furniture, Hui Bin, can you tell us please about how users can now link together separate components for custom pieces?
Absolutely. So we have brought a component feature. If you haven't tried it out, I really recommend to give it a shot. So essentially, what we heard from our user is that when they do custom pieces, or maybe just like, you know, have to figure out how much, like where they have to buy for a certain like, you know, cabinetries or door, they need to really do like, you know, different combinations. So, and purchase those items separately, the components that's separate from the parent item. Therefore, we roll out a component feature. As you can see, this, you know, little icon here. In this particular custom sofa, we attach the fabric as a component to this sofa, and also define that there are 10 yards of each fabric for this 10 yard of the fabric of each chair, and it will automatically calculate, you know, how many yards of fabric we have to buy. Depends on the quantity of the parent item. You can do the same. For example, here's the door hardware for the door, and after you create those like components, they can be used in your library as well. So if I want to add a component to a parent item, I can do add new components and start from scratch. Or I can go to library and then select a certain, for example, fabric item from my fabric library and attach as a component. And once you're ready to do procurements, when you need to issue like the purchase order, you can definitely, for example, filter out your item as a component only, and then create purchase order for the component separately. And then you can also like, you know, issue a purchase order for the parent separately if you need to. And then speaking, about components and also how you can issue purchase orders for different components, we did roll out some enhancements for the PO workflow as well. So let me show you guys how it works. So this is our purchase order table. And then, for example, if I have this purchase order in draft status, and sometimes you might actually have different items need to ship to different places, or that item is directly billed to the client, but not billed billed to yourself. Therefore, we give you more flexibility in terms of what ship to address as well as what bill to address you can add. So for different projects, you can set up a certain address as the default project ship to address. You can also add a new address for different items that might go to a warehouse or the job site, etc. And then you can also add different, like for example, bill to address as you see fitted for different projects. So we're going to continue to do some enhancements on the PO, so please stay tuned. And then another enhancement that's really closely related to the whole purchasing as well as managing the budget and cost is the cost analysis feature we just rolled out actually yesterday. So it's currently in production beta. It's available for all the users to give it a try. So please feel free to poke around and let us know what you think. So essentially now there is an analysis button. Once you click into it, you can look at the cost that's by area as well as like by divisions. And if you already use our procurement functions to manage the whole purchasing with your suppliers, you can also see the breakdown of how much you are spending and different PO status by suppliers. If you group by PO status, you can also give a view in terms of how much I already pay and how much is PO and how much due to the suppliers. Again, there's a lot of flexibility. There are different columns you can choose to make it available for you in this table. And then if you need to download the table into Excel format for further analysis in your separate software or other systems, you can definitely download a Excel as file from here. And then related to this whole cost analysis, we also has been working on a budgeting feature. So now if you are creating a new project, there is a field for you to input the budget for the whole project. And if you, for existing project, you can go here in the project editor and add some budget here. So how it will work is that the total project budget information will show up on the top of your area plan. So as you start specifying things, if you want to compare, how much is the actual specified or even like procure total, pay total versus your budget, and this is the place to compare them and see whether you are spending too much or there's a lot of room for you to add some new things or buy more expensive stuff. So now maybe like Ingrid, since we talk about the procurements, and we also have rolled out some improvements in terms of collaborating with suppliers or even clients, and give our users more flexibility as well as control how to share information with them. Can you tell us something about the advanced sharing function?
Yep, absolutely. So as is normal with a lot of projects, you're going to be working with people who are not necessarily a part of your team, but you are collaborating with anyway. And so we call them external collaborators. It could be like a client or a consultant, or as most of you guys are design firms, you're going to be working with, let's say, contractors / builders. We've put together a lot of functionalities that give you more flexibility and allow you more granularity in what you're sharing with your external collaborators. So Here, you can see that you have 3 options for sharing. You can share an entire project or just divisions or just some selected items. So let me go through this one by one. So let's say that you are sharing the entire project with your client because you've picked out products and you want to get their approval for their final approval for the products so that you can start the procurement process. So what you do is you type in their email, select their role, and you see that we've already put together some preset roles so that you don't have to do it yourself. Select which phases you're going to share. So in this case, it'll be owner approval. And what kind of view would you like them to see? So right now we're looking at table view, but as you saw earlier, we also have grid views. So you can choose to show that to them as well. Depends on what you and your client are comfortable with. And then you can also give them the option to add new items if you like, and then just use the default message or add your own custom message. And then you just share that. And then you would want to probably share specific divisions of a project if you're looking, if you're working with, let's say, a subcontractor. So let's say for this week that you're installing flooring. And so you want to share the installation phase with them. Table view is probably good. So it's mostly the same all throughout, as you can see. And then here is where you can select which divisions you want to share. So just flooring for now, because that's all we're working on with this team, with this specific team of contractors. And lastly, you have the option of just sharing some select items. And this is especially useful for when you're working with suppliers. So let's say these 3 items, you are trying to bid them out. So first thing you want to do is select the items you want to share, and then click share your selected items. And this is going to go out to my potential suppliers. Again, select all of these options that you're comfortable with. You can allow them to add new items if you want. And the nice thing about this option is that if you are working with more than one supplier and they're going to be bidding against each other, they can upload their product data directly to your project, and they won't see each other's information. And that way you're still keeping that privacy between them so that you can have a good bidding process. And then one last thing I wanted to show you about this is if you look at viewer access, under external user list, you are going to see a list of all of the users that or external users that you've invited to your projects, what the role is, when they last opened the project, or if they've not opened it yet, who invited them, which projects they've been invited to. Here you can edit their access after the fact. And of course, you can also remove them. And then under roles and access is where you'll see that list of roles that has been preset. And if you click on settings, you'll see a list of all of your existing columns and what sort of access they have to each of those. All right, so that is it for external sharing. But speaking of working with different entities or clients, we have had a lot of requests for the ability to save multiple templates. Huibin, can you please tell us more about this?
Absolutely. So, as you all know, some of your clients could be, relatively picky, especially if you're servicing some corporate clients who has their own design guides and templates that with a certain logo or font or format they have to follow. It could be a difficult situation for you because you have all the data, your library set up in Folio that you try to standardize. But meanwhile, different clients of yours might want you to create a very custom presentation format. And so it's not really that efficient if you have to copy and paste those data all over again into the format that they required. Therefore, we expand the custom presentation feature. For example, you can actually request us to set up some standard formats that represent different clients' layout requirements, and then you can select which template you want to choose and generate a template in actually Microsoft Word document format, so that will give you more flexibility to further edit those documents as you see fit. So yes, if you have a situation like that, you want to take advantage of this kind of custom white glove services, but also make sure that your product data is standardized in Folio, you can reach out to us and we're gonna do assessments and then charge you just a one-time fee to set up those custom templates. Okay. And so those are the new features that we have rolled out in the past 3-4 months, and then we're gonna talk about some of the new features we have been working on. And meanwhile, we do have a Q&A button actually. If you have some questions, you can feel free to start typing in the questions so that we can start answering your questions after we go over the new features coming out. Ingrid, do you mind show the presentation page with the new feature listing?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep, thank you. So one of the big theme we have been putting a lot of focus on is really improve the usability of the dashboard. So our dashboard are getting just a lot more functions adding to it. We don't want it to be too overwhelming as we continue to add more richness of the features. So we have been really putting some strategy in terms of how to simplify their dashboard UI, and meanwhile give you more flexibility, like you no problem miss, for example, in Excel spreadsheet. So you're gonna expect some improvement on the dashboard user interface. We're gonna also roll out a function called group by. So right now in the dashboard, you can filter out, for example, their information by different areas. You can also do by different divisions. But we know that you probably also want to look at things, for example, by the status, right? Want to group by the status of the items or group by suppliers. So we're gonna roll out a function called group by and give you more flexibility to sort and group things under different templates. And then another improvement that we have been doing planning is to bulk edit. So right now, you can only provide for example, bulk edit functions under bulk update function under a list column type. But we know that a lot of users, they want to, for example, bulk changes or the revision dates, or bulk changes a text input for a certain column. So we're gonna roll out bulk edit and give you more flexibility to update things faster. We are also working on revisions and highlights. So revision has been a very popular ask. So we actually are testing a highlight function, allow you to highlight different cells to tell your contractor, especially when a report's generated, what has changed, and also come with it a revision tracking function. In terms of their purchase order and procurement process, often some of users, they will have issue one purchase order, but the shipments actually come in multiple batches. So are the invoice. So we are working on allow you to attaching multiple invoices and shipments in one single PO, and also improve the whole supply invoice and shipment interface. And next up is really related to also procurement. Right now, our users have been using, for example, our request for quote feature to work with suppliers and generate PO, etc. We try to expand basically that platform, and so that allow our suppliers to actually be more active, and then, for example, directly submit their supplier invoice to you, attach the PO, so that you don't have to do those manual copy and paste work yourself, and also better manage the whole process in one single platform. Lastly, for those who have been using Revit, we're still actually working on a Revit Phase 2. The Revit Phase 2 would help you basically pull the floor plan information, the room numbers, the item tags, and the quantities of those items attached, to different rooms directly from the Revit model to your Folio project dashboard. So those are all the features we are working on, and then we're happy to get your feedbacks as we're developing those features. I already see some question coming in, so let's maybe get started with the Q&A. Ingrid, can you go through some of the questions we have?
Yep, absolutely. So from Valerie Kreppel, in the past we have run into issues with sharing to the same collaborator / vendor more than 3 times. Is there a limit to the number of times you can share projects with your new sharing features?
So we haven't really changed this project limit at this point, but it's not that we're not thinking about it, because now we expand this sharing into more capacity. So yeah, I would say that potentially, yes, we'll make some changes, but we haven't really put a lot of focus on it at this point.
Yep. And from Amy Moore, if you add info to a product in the new full page feature, will that info be saved in the library? Additionally, if you add collaborators, do you have to pay for a seat for each collaborator? That's a really good question. We only have 3 seats for our office currently.
Okay, so let me answer the first question. That's actually a very important question to answer, is what information would actually save in the library that you can reuse across different projects. So how do we decide what information is something that should be saved in the library? For example, maybe the shipment status of item shouldn't be saved in the library. However, like the manufacturer name and then the model number, those are really very specific and attached to the product itself, and should be reused and recycled again through the library function. So this is where you can control what fields are product specific fields that will basically save in the library. So if you go to the column setting, and then as you can see on the right hand side, there's a column property. So if it's a product specific, it means that it will attach the product and you can query and use as a drop down in your library. If it's a project specific, for example, here we have a project specific, it's really like a revision date. So revision date should not be something that get carried over through the library, so it's project specific. We also have pricing related. So pricing related columns are the columns that you can pull up. For example, I took a look at your cost under this area drop down, as well as under the analysis. So essentially, where do we know, okay, what are the number related columns to pull up, since we give you the control of how to manage your dashboard. So this is where we decided. If you put something that's like a pricing related column, then it will be available for you to add to your cost analysis table. So also want to show you, what columns are shown in the library. If you do add from library, I'm just going to do lighting as an example. So if I do advanced search, as you can see, I have a bunch of drop down. Some are like light source or wattage. That's very, very specific to lighting product categories. So that's basically has been set as a product specific column. And if it's a product specific column, then it become one of the fields that you can use as a search inquiry fields in your library search dropdown. So I hope I answered this question. If still not clear, feel free to ping us and we can roll out some tutorial about that. And then another question, if you add a collaborator, do you have to pay for each collaborator? So it depends on what the function that collaborator serve. So when you share with external users, they essentially can only access the dashboard itself. Like even if they can add item, for example, they're not able to do a lot of more, like, they cannot use the library, they cannot do, like, some of the fancy added functions. They don't want to have like, analysis or procurement features. But they just have like a very, and drawing cut dashboard. They cannot, for example, edit the area plan. If someone who are working closely with you in project and actually, be, fully involved in the specs process or the procurement process, I recommend that you add that person as a user. If you want to upgrade your plan during COVID-19, we can definitely provide some discounts. So you can just reach out to us on a live chat and we can connect you with some of our account manager to help you navigate the process and provide you some options. So that's for the like external sharing, right? There's some limitation, but they also have some flexibility in that.
Yep, absolutely. So added to that is the dashboard that you're going to be sharing with an external collaborator is going to look pretty much the same, but also different in that it will look super basic. So they won't have access to these. And like we've been said, these functions as well. And these are things that you want to keep within your team anyway, because by default, those are the people that you are going to trust more. But yeah, if you want to give them additional access / functions that you would only give to an internal team member, then that's the time that you'll need an extra seat. From Victoria Antonenko, it seems like he can also add an item to an existing purchase order. Is this correct? And
Yeah.
also, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, Victoria, thank you so much for reminding me of that. This is definitely an improvement. I think that's very important if you are using Folio to manage a whole purchase order. So now you can add, yes, you can add the item to existing purchase order if the PO has been issued. So you don't have to create a PO from scratch if you want to make changes.
Also from Victoria, can you please show us more about the cost analysis and how the statuses of payments will show up and if it will be shown on the dashboard so that we can share it with external users as well?
Okay, so let me try to answer that question. So this is my demo account, so I might not have actually a full project to show. So essentially, the column shop here, if you are using like group by supplier or group by PO status, then the column shop here will be the fields that and the data coming from the whole procurement module. If you do, for example, area and divisions, then the column shop here will be those columns that probably you created or like can be easily changeable and not directly linked to the PO functions. But we actually working on improvement and that. So what we are going to do is that we will make information for both dashboard as well as the actual payment information from your procurement workflow available in like all those like group by functions. So we're already aware of there's such a need and we have been working on it. It's one of the things that we're going to roll out relatively soon so that you can see both your internal calculation as well as the actual, for example, paid amounts and or invoice amount and PO amount in this like cost analysis.
Awesome. So super interesting question from Nancy Farrow, and this has to do with, I believe, components and how you would use that in the purchase order. So is there a way to link products? For example, when we have a lamp, but also need to include the light bulb, which is a separate product, but both need to go together, or I guess, be purchased together?
So yeah, Nancy, that's exactly what a component feature is for. So essentially, if you, for example, have the, like, want to add a light bulb that need to be procured separately, but both need to go together as a like presentation in your presentation package and your cost analysis. So what you can do is that you can select this lighting item and then add a new component. So I will just do lighting for now, and then confirmed. So I can mention that it's a light bulb, right? And then for, depends on how many light bulb you have to include for each lighting fixture. For example, if this particular lighting fixture needs 3 light bulbs, so I can do 3 here. And then, well, it's added already. Let me take a look actually. I'm gonna click something. Oh yeah, here. So you can further add it here. So see, because I configured that there is like 3 light bulbs for each of the lighting fixtures, so altogether I have to buy 15 of them. Yeah, and then you can, again, as I mentioned, now you can directly put the information here. And then when you generate purchase order, you can definitely generate purchase order together as like a whole if they are supplied by the same supplier, or in case of, like, for example, fabric and some other things, if you're sourced separately, then you can generate separate purchase orders for them.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so do we have any other questions? We do have a few more minutes.
So please do feel free to reach out to us on Live Help if you have any suggestions, because as we are developing those features and we rolling out to them, we do get a lot of feedback from you, so that we know, okay, what we should improve. And so your voice is super important. Please do reach out. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So from Maria Sosa, we have asked about adding a proposal feature. Is that something that can be added?
Yes, yes, it is in our pipeline. I'm sorry that I did not mention it. So some little bit technical background. What happened is that um, some of our like features is built in a older technology, which is related to, for example, client invoice. So we plan to rebuild that module, the client invoice module, and also add on a client proposal module with this whole, we call it, improvement. So yes, it is something that we do plan to do.
Awesome. Okay, anyone else? Yep. So Nancy Farrow, is there a way to edit the formula in a column? We are having some trouble with our formulas.
Yes, you can edit the formula in the column. So let me try to find one face template with lots of columns. So this one, for example, you can see that we have some number that's in light gray. If you click into it, so it shows the formula. Okay, so in order to change the formula, you can delete it, all right, the original formula first, and create a new one, or you can click into it and then create a brand new one here. So to create a formula, we actually have a little bit tutorial here that you can click into and show you how to create formulas. So if I want to type in and query a particular variable, so I can just type in, allowances, and it will give me some suggestions, minus total. Trade price times quantity. So this is how you can build a formula, and you can define how many decimals you need, and when you hit save, will ask you, do you want to apply this new formula to this particular cell, this item only, or you want to apply it to the this particular divisions, or you want to apply it to all the divisions, basically everything in that project. So, so there are different options for you to explore.
All right, question from Victoria. One more question about purchase orders. Can we delete an item from a PO if it was removed from the scope?
I believe so. So let's take a look. So if the PO is still in draft status, you can just directly edit PO and then delete the item, okay, and save. If the item is not in draft status anymore, so for example, you have already issued it, and then or you notice that, okay, unfortunately, we're not gonna, get that one, but it's already sent out. So what you can do is that in that case, once the PO is sent out, you have to actually unlock it. So you can click this unlock and revise PO, and then it will automatically log a new version. For example, here it becomes a version 2. In version 2, you can basically delete anything that you don't want. Okay, and then hit save again. And then you can go through the regular process of getting it approved, send it to a supplier, etc. You can also see some of the audit trail here. Who has due changes on what date. You can also look at different versions. So now we're in version 2, reversion 2, actually reversion 2. So if I will go to reversion 1, yeah, I can see the whole shower still there.
Very cool. Yeah, these are, so in procurement and formulas, these are typically, there are usually a lot of questions about that. So like Huibin said, please reach out to us anytime if you need help or you would like a walkthrough or a tutorial. Okay, well, I guess we don't have any more questions. So I do want to thank everyone for taking an hour out of your busy day to spend time with us. And again, also for trusting us with your business. And thank you, Huibin, for putting this together. And again, Folio is always improving. And like Huibin said, your feedback is very important to us. Feel free to message us for help or feature suggestions. That is where we get a lot of the improvements from. We always do like hearing from you. And that is it for now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Have a great day. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.